WNYathletics.com would like to thank today's sponsors. Howard Hanna Real Estate Services. Ready to sell your home? Visit howardhanna.com today. Howard Hanna. Home happens here. Western New York Immediate Care, with 4 convenient locations in the Buffalo area: Amherst, Buffalo, Depew, Lancaster, and Orchard Park. Western New York Immediate Care is now offering telemedicine services to provide you care anytime, anywhere. Visit WNY Immediate Care on-site or virtually at WNYimmediatecare.com. Logistics Plus Buffalo is your go-to resource for all your transportation needs. LP moves freight of all shapes and sizes all across the world. Call LP Buffalo today at 716-877-9653 or email buffalo@logisticsplus.com. AdPro Sports. AdPro is the largest team sports dealers and brand merchandise providers in the nation. For a variety of custom merchandise solutions, from apparel to promotional items, visit adprosports.com. Empire Electric. For all your home, business, or office electrical needs, call Empire Electric at 716-634-0330. Free estimates and financing available for all customers. Empire Electric. Call 716-634-0330.
All right, welcome into High School Sports Saturday. I'm Francis Beck, filling in for Tom and Frank today. But we have some very special guests with us. Let me show them to you. We have Matt O'Rourke along with some wrestlers from Newfane. We have Aiden Gillings, Aiden Buttery, hope I'm getting that right, JJ Luzinski, and Coach Levin Luzinski, who is cut off right now, but I'm going to move the camera so you can see him a little bit later. But Matt, what are we going to be hearing from those guys today?
We're going to start with, obviously, our Newfane guys. We're going to talk to these 3. They're all going to head to the state tournament next weekend. And then once they wrap up out of here, we'll get into the results from the Section 6 individual championships and the Monsignor Martin results from the CHSAA tournament from last weekend as well. I think we're up to date for the most part with our league championships around the section we talked about a few weeks ago. I think we talked about the state dual meet tournament. So as soon as the state dual meet tournament ends nowadays, we go right into the class tournament and then right into the sectional tournament, and then we have a 2-week break before the state tournament. But with Newfane here today, excuse me, we'll talk to them. We got a couple of section champions. We got a runner-up who's also going to head to the state tournament, and we'll just kind of talk about the Newfane season real briefly and let these guys get out of here. So that's what we'll go over.
All right, before we get to that, just a few announcements here. Girls hockey, unfortunately, Kenji Falls fell last night in the state semifinal. Clinton 4-2. Flory and Madison Flory and Isabel Jamie both had goals. Carolyn Burgo made 16 saves. So Kenji coming home today, unfortunately not state champions. Some other announcements we should mention this weekend. We are doing our girls basketball and our boys basketball show. I know you've seen our graphics on all over social media. We have probably 50 of some of the best players in all of Western New York coming to our studios today, so watch out for that. 2 o'clock today for the girls, tomorrow for the boys. But that is about it. We know, regular season is pretty much wrapped up for all these sports, so playoffs start next week. But wrestling is a little bit further along than everybody. So Matt, I'll turn it back over to you. Last weekend was the individual championships.
Yep.
And for Section 6 and for Calyx, I know we got some of the big winners here today.
Yeah. So yes, just to give you up to date, Section 6 individual championships, otherwise known as the divisional tournaments, otherwise known as the interclass tournaments, are always 2 weeks before the state tournament. Now, some other states do theirs the week after. I like that we have kind of a 2-week break. It gives a nice buffer and recovery and gets the state committee plenty of time to organize the seedings and any entries and any injuries that might occur. So I like it. It gives people time to travel and get their arrangements in order who might not have thought they were going to go. The week before that, obviously, is the class tournaments. In Section 6, we went from 5 tournaments to 4, where our AA and our A tournaments, your top 4 qualifiers, make the sectional tournaments, the divisional tournaments, and your top 5 in our B in Class C, D tournaments make the sectional tournament. And so once you get to the sectional tournament, We now send, remember last year was the first year of our auto qualifier system. We don't have the wild card thing anymore. So our champions, our 26, 13 champions in each division, and our 13 runners up in each division in Section 6 make the state tournament. Since we send our top 2 qualifiers, we do a true second place match. Not everywhere in the state does that. A couple of sections send all 3 of their top guys. A couple of sections only send their champion. But it's up to the individual sections to do a true second place match if they want to. And the true second place match is if the third place wrestler in the bracket didn't wrestle the runner up in the finals, they will meet after the finals for a trip to the state tournament on the line. So none of these guys, none of you guys, you didn't have to, right? None of these guys had to wrestle the true second place match. I know that we've all been to the section tournaments, and we've all seen a couple of people get their heart broken over the years who fall in the final. This one right here did last year. But he got some redemption this year and making sure that he won it really close. We'll talk about him. But a couple of guys have had their hearts broken in the past. Some others, it's definitely, we'll talk to Aiden about what it's like to wrestle that match, but it definitely looks like something that personally I wouldn't want to do, being exasperated and tired from the finals, and then have to go defend your runner-up position afterwards. So it's a really interesting thing. I know Section 3 did it this year for the first time because they dropped down from the 3 qualifiers to 2, and they've been going bananas online about it, trying to figure out. We did it last year, so we have an understanding. But for example, Section 3 small schools dropped from the 3 qualifier to 2 for this year, and it's all heck's broken loose on the internet about it. So it's very interesting to see people's reactions for the first time doing the true second place match. So globally, you see a lot of high level of the best collegiate or men's level, whatever tournaments. A lot of international tournaments have done true second for quite some time. So it's interesting to see it implemented at the high school level in New York State. So, anyway, yeah, go ahead.
So guys, how have you been? Let's go over it. You got 2 weeks before states. Just what's kind of been your training like? I know it's a little different with a smaller group instead of the whole team. So how has that kind of been like the past week or so?
We've been traveling around trying to get the best practices we can, get different looks from everybody. This past Thursday, everybody came to Will North for our media day. We were getting great looks with everybody. Yesterday, we went out to Stewart's Barn. We were getting looks with kids from, out east. Just trying to get as many large school and small school matchups as you can, getting ready to go.
Yeah, so let me introduce real quick, just so you know. Aiden Gillings in the end is, 3-time section champ now and 2-time state place winner. He's only a sophomore, so he's already one of the most experienced we have in Western New York from that perspective of wrestling in the state level. Next to him, we got Aiden Buttery. They're buddies, right? They go back all the way to forever.
4 years
Right,
old.
so first-time sectional or state tournament qualifier, was a sectional finalist last year, but missed going, but made the sectional final this year. And who do you wrestle in the final? Who do you think? Pop quiz. Sitting right next to him.
This guy.
They met in the 132-pound Section 6 final and small school final. And then right next to me is J.J. Luchinsky. J.J. was a first-time section champ this year. You might remember his brother, Andy. Yeah, we remember that name, now wrestling at UP. So he was a Section 6 102-pound champion this year, and he's a junior. So got a couple guys, sophomores, all going to be back next year, but 2 of these guys making their first appearance at states, and he's making his third.
So Aiden, you're making your third, right?
Yep.
So what wisdom have you tried to impart upon your teammates right now about this process and as first-timers?
I mean, we went to the team duels last year, and they've been in the arena. They've gone and watched and supported me all my years, and even Andy before. They know what it's like as a spectator, but it's a total different aura when you're out on the mat and you got people looking down on you. And I'm just trying to introduce that feeling that, if you catch a kid first match, that's going to be real tough. You got to work through it. There's things that are going to happen that might not normally happen. I mean, my 7th grade year, I was the 5 seed, and I went out there and got pinned by the 12 in the first period. And I had to win like 5 or 6 matches to come back and take 4th. So it's a tough journey back there. And, I mean, if you end up a Wrestleback Warrior, you're going to end off pretty well.
And that's something that you don't see in a lot of sports, that you can lose in the first round and still find your way back to the win. So a little bit, walk me through that, Matt, how that happens.
That's just it. There's really nothing else to it. There's nothing.
So
that's part of wrestling, man. Is at the state tournament, dual meet tournament, it's a single. Well, to advancement is single elimination. Once you wrestle in your pool, you can wrestle twice in your pool. You can win one or still not advance. You could go 0-2 and leave, but you're still going to get a couple matches. So it's a little bit different for that.
Okay,
thing.
so it's not like, other sports where, if you lose, it's like one and done.
No.
If you lose, you're out.
No, not in wrestling. The state semifinals for the dual meet tournament is the only one and done I can think of, right?
Yeah.
Kevin, I think that's the only thing we have that's a one and done, which is good because we want to encourage wrestlebacks are part of the sport. It's part of the DNA of everything here. We'll get to somebody in a little while who lost in the second round of their tournament, who's then going to end up going to states. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But that's where the legends are forged, and you make a name for yourself as being a wrestleback warrior, regardless of what round you lose in. Especially the ones that lose in like a first round and end up wrestling back. Those guys get as much attention or like street cred is somebody who might win it. And they're like, if you see a guy who lost in the first round, they end up taking third place, and you're like, oh my God, what a crazy day. Because everyone knows how difficult that is. You have the weight of missing placing if you lose. You have the weight of, even if I take third place, the lights aren't going to be on me. It's a lot to handle mentally and emotionally, right? You guys would agree, right?
Yeah, of
The
course.
stress of just knowing every match could be your last match. You're done there, and if you lose. So
Yeah.
You're just kind of
Yep.
like you might have that once in a day at the state tournament.
Sure.
But you really get to that point where if you're like he goes out and gets pinned 30 seconds into his first appearance at the state tournament, and like I'm literally walking back from the mat going, oh gosh, this is gonna be a long weekend.
Yeah.
We're gonna have this kid freaking out all weekend because
Yeah.
he got pinned twice at states.
Well, he was only a baby then too. He was only
He
seventh
was.
grader.
Only a little baby,
Yeah.
but
That was an interesting year. We had 4 guys in.
Yep.
We had a 7th grader at 99 pounds. We had a finalist at 102 or 106, and we had a
champ at
state
285.
champ at 285.
285.
So we earned our money that weekend.
For sure.
Like,
I think that was the most, right? You guys had sent 3 a couple of times.
We
before.
sent 4 my 7th grade year because Nugent took 8th that
Right.
year, and then my freshman year we sent 4 again. We
Yep.
had
Okay.
3 placers.
3 placers, and
Right, and
One
Adam
more.
just
Huntington-
missed in the blood
Huntington
round.
lost in the Bloods. Yeah.
That's what we call the final round to determine if you're going to place or not. It's called the blood round. It used to be on Saturday morning at the state tournament, but now because we placed the 7th and 8th, it's on Friday night. Which I liked it on Saturday morning because I liked that the kids had to all stress and like worry about it the
Make
next
weight.
morning. I love that part. Like
Make
that part was
weight,
awesome.
Strap the shoes back on.
Not
get
gonna
ready
lie,
To go,
that's
and
that's
not be
warrior stuff right
guaranteed.
there. And honestly, I would expect kids that make the state tournament to be able to handle that. Not everybody can handle that stress, but kids that make the state tournament can. That's why we have a state championship with the best of the best. So, Anyway, so let's I want to go to Aiden real quick. You can call him Jilly. He answers
Jilly?
to Jilly, and he answers to Ado if you want.
Okay.
That's how.
I'll
'cause-
try to remember that.
No, it's okay. You don't have to.
We had 4 Aidens. on
He's
the
he's
team.
got
Yeah.
it tatted
Everybody
on
had a
his.
name.
He's
Everyone
got
in
it tatted
Newfan's
on his-
named Aiden.
I know. I noticed that when I looked at the tweeting, I'm like, oh, there's 2 Aidens.
Yeah, there's like 2 other ones too, right?
Yeah.
They only name their kids Aiden. There's a third of the team is Aidens. But I want to talk to Buttery real quick about Jillian mentioned about the wisdom he's trying to give you guys, and you had to sit there and watch in the state tournament next year. So what was your mentality as you sat there for 2 days or 3 days or however long in Albany watching your teammates wrestle, and then what did you decide to do in the off season that made it so that you would ensure that you were going to states, like you weren't taking no for an answer type of thing. So what did you do in that between those couple days in Albany and then up to now?
So I'd basically say, like, when I'd go to spectate, like, it sucked every single year going there and just watching. Like, the last year that I went to spectate, I wasn't even going to go because that was the year that I made the sectional finals and then ended up losing to Johnny Vicario,
Right.
who ended up being a state finalist. And then I had to wrestle back Gavin Chirfella in the true second match.
Yep.
And once he kind of took me down in that match right off the bat, it's kind of when I accepted that that wasn't the year I was going to the state
Sure.
tournament. Like, that wasn't the year that I was focused on wrestling. So then the off season, I honestly took like a huge break from wrestling. I didn't come back to wrestling until like a month before the season. And then right there, I started to put like the extra work in. I went to a couple weekend practices. And then right when we hit end of December, that's when I really like turned up and
Nice.
started practicing a lot more, started getting a lot better partners, going to a lot better places. It's just everything kind of like the pieces just went together right after that.
That's great. Everyone kind of copes in their own way. and everybody's different. So the way you went about it obviously worked for you.
Yeah.
So some people go out there and just wrestle a million matches. Some people take a little time to self-reflect, and that's perfectly acceptable. Obviously, you're going to the state tournament, so
Yeah.
that's the way you went about it is great. And also, that's pretty advanced thought level process for a sophomore. I mean, that just shows you years of experience of wrestling peewees and, you know, putting in a couple of big years on the varsity level before you even become a 10th grader in high school. Like that's pretty advanced, and like that reflects heavily on the culture of wrestling in Newfane and what they have there. You know, where it's all about getting that experience, and everybody gets their heart broke at some point. It's almost like the earlier you do it, almost the better, because then you set yourself up for a year like this. It's going to be huge for next year, having two guys returning that went to the state tournament the year before. You know
At
what I
the
mean?
same
It's such a
weight,
big
yeah.
deal. It's such a big deal to have returning state qualifiers, returning state place winners. It's big for the teams. It's big for the section now. The way that, you know, we accumulate and calculate the PowerPoints and who ends up getting those. It's not a guaranteed thing to have two auto qualifiers like we do. The section, in big schools and small schools, the section has to perform well enough at the state tournament, and it weighs heavily on state place winners to be able to maintain that spot. And ultimately, we want to move up and have 3 of our top guys go, and it's very, very difficult to do. So we can't be lackadaisical and say, oh, well, whatever, you know, this isn't a great year. We can't afford that, because there's always a potential after a certain, how many years is it, Coach? 3 years aggregate formula that
3-year
you
rolling,
could move down if your section doesn't perform well enough at the state tournament. We don't want to do that, because then we're only sending our champions, and that wouldn't be good. So, good answer. I like that. All right, JJ, you're going to head to the state tournament for the first time. You know, I wrote last week that it's rare to find an upperclassman, senior, junior, wrestling at that lower weight. You run into a lot of freshmen, a lot of underclassmen sometimes. I mean, you find yourself as the 2 seed at the sectional tournament. Did you see yourself there at the beginning of the season?
Definitely not. I mean, I've always been like the older guy, but I mean, I'm a little bit bigger than everyone, but still like the same size
Yeah, of
as a
course.
junior than like the freshman.
Right.
And
And there's some very talented underclassmen. I
Yeah.
totally understand that. But I mean, it's got to be nice being a little bit more experienced, a little bit older, a little bit more of an edge on your sword when it comes to wrestling a 7th grader and 8th grader. Obviously, they're very talented, and obviously everybody weighs the same. But being the 2 seed in the weight class, I mean, you've had a couple good years on varsity already. I think you really had a breakout season this year, especially with sharing some time with Braden Collison at the lower weights. You guys either jump in 102 or 110, wherever your coaches thought would work best for you, and you guys had it just so works out that their best 4 wrestlers, they're all at the same 2 weights.
Oh
So,
wow!
and-
So yes,
yeah.
it's iron sharpening iron.
For sure it is, but it definitely is like, it presents some challenges, I would imagine, when it comes to setting a dual meet lineup, when it comes to like, okay, well, Aiden and Aiden are the same weight, JJ and Braden are the same weight, like who's going up?
Well, that's
Who's
where
going down?
it's cool where the 50% of your weigh-ins comes in, because
Mhm.
we were going every other week.
Yep.
And we're both there.
Well, we
Got
won't have to
our
worry
weights.
about that anymore, will we?
No.
Nope.
Not anymore, so.
But new rules bring new headaches.
New
Yeah.
implications.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, well, JJ, what are you looking forward to at the state tournament? I'm sure you've been there and watched before, right? You've seen your brother compete there, what, three times?
3 times.
Right.
Yeah, I've always like been there to watch him. I mean,
Mhm.
every year I've been there. I saw him lose 2 times in the state finals, and I mean it's awesome going there, but it's gonna be a whole different level competing there.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he'll have some good advice for you. I'm sure Jilly over there has some good advice for you, right? So, all right, cool. What do you got, Francis?
You know, I noticed on your jackets here, they're wearing their varsity jackets, as you can see, and you know, I kind of noticed, you know, you guys play football, lacrosse. So how does, and I've heard this a lot from, you know, different things from different people. How does wrestling help you in those other sports, even though they may not be your first sports? But how do you think that gives you an edge, maybe over your teammates or your opponents?
I mean, the endurance you gain through wrestling, it's totally different. A, the cardio, and B, the muscular endurance that you build throughout the process of even just practicing, let alone scrapping and live goes and matches and whatnot. You build and you get stronger everywhere, even in different positions, where if you're exploding out of a stance as a wide receiver or a defensive end, it works both ways, where if you're coming out of a base off the bottom, you're exploding either way, and you get that sort of feel. And, you know, if you're taking hits, you're just building up to be stronger. Sports like lacrosse, you got to be a little bit more technical, but the little things where, you know, you're fine-tuning your sweeps angle or your high crouch or whatnot, it's the same thing with your cradle.
Well, go ahead.
I'd have to say that, like, wrestling shape, it's a lot different than any other shape, just like what Jilly said with, like, the muscular endurance and the physical endurance, all of that. Like, the conditioning that you have to be in to wrestle is a lot different than football conditioning. It's not just wind sprints. It's not just how far you can go. It's about how long you can last on the mat with another guy, how much stronger he can be, and how much you have to put in to be the best.
Yeah, when it's just you and him on the mat, there's a whole nother aura of where you got to dig deep. As when there's 10 guys on the field, there's a little bit more lenient. You can be more reliable. When it's just you two out there, you got to go.
Do you find yourself on the field when you're playing lacrosse or football having, you know, a mental edge in your own head of like, okay, well, I've been through way worse than any of this stuff. I'm a wrestler. Like, I practice all year long, practice in a hot room, have to make weight, have to worry about this, have to worry about that. Do you find yourself naturally just like picking up the intensity for your teammates, or like going into some sort of on-field leadership like that? I don't mean like rah-rah stuff. I mean just like putting your nose to the grindstone. Do you find that you guys find yourselves in that position more than maybe others who don't wrestle?
Yeah, like when the team would get a little rattled up, if we were down a little bit and things were getting rowdy on the lacrosse field, there's got to be a kid that's just a buzzsaw. You put your head down and you keep moving and you move the ball upfield. And I mean, as a wrestler, I feel like most of us could agree that we were trying to be those kids, even though we're younger underclassmen and we had a lot of older kids last year. Kevin's our coach. We were the guys. I mean, we weren't a very great lacrosse team, but we had a good culture. Everybody was friends with everybody.
Yeah.
And it was a good time to have in the spring season.
That's great because like when I take like a look, like a scientific look at wrestlers and like everybody else, I don't care about age. It doesn't matter to me at all. I'm like, that kid's a wrestler. Put him, he'll be fine. The age only matters to me in the confines of what wrestling is. When I see wrestlers out there playing lacrosse or football or basically anything else, I'm like, doesn't matter. I don't care. I've seen Andy. Andy was what, like 140 pounds soaking wet,
Tackling everybody.
leading the team in tackles.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it this year. I talked to, we know our friends at Chautauqua Lake, Marty Olson, right?
Yeah.
138 pound section finalist this year, was like one of the leaders in Western New York in like tackles for loss. Or Jordan Joslin, right? 126 pound section champ, just out there, just like doing whatever they wanted to, and that's not just for them or for you guys. Like, that's everywhere. So I love that. That's a good answer, Jilly. Very insightful. I like that.
You know, I have to ask. I know you guys got to get going soon, but just give me one guy who you think was probably the hardest guy to wrestle, whether you won or lost, but definitely the toughest matchup you've ever had. A matchup you'll never forget.
I would say, I mean, opponent-wise, it would probably be Carlin, because the Gugliano kid I wrestled at Easterns, we split 1-1, and then obviously our Mafio from the Falls is a really tough competitor, but we've split throughout our high school career. But I mean, emotional-wise and like mental preparation, tough-wise, I think it would be wrestling him right here. We wrestled 4 times throughout the year. We wrestled at Trip in the semis. That was a tough one. They're always really close.
Is it because you guys know each other so well?
Yeah, nobody wants the other one to lose. I mean, we've been wrestling each other every day since we were 6 years old. So when we get to do something like this and send both of us to the state tournament as sophomores, that's pretty special.
You guys?
Yeah.
I'd say probably my toughest match would have to have been this year at the Windsor tournament. I wrestled a kid from Burnt Hills, Gabe Goss.
Yeah.
He was just a little tank. He was the fastest kid I've ever wrestled. He was strong. I just really couldn't do much. The first time we wrestled, he ended up torturing me. He beat me like 14-6 or something.
14-9. He had no chill.
He had no chill?
No chill.
Just kept moving, never
Whole
stopped.
6 minutes.
I ended up wrestling him again in the Conti semis, and I only ended up losing to him 4-2 that time. It was a lot closer match. I was able to slow him down. I couldn't stop him in neutral. He just blasted through me every single time.
Yeah.
You know, it's something special when you're watching a kid and beat your kid and you're like, holy crap, this kid's good.
Yeah.
Like, I like this kid.
Yeah.
You know, as he's like,
Mowing down on
You
our
can
kid.
appreciate that.
And-
Yeah, there's an element to that with wrestling where it's like you can appreciate it.
every once in a while you want to see your guy get beat on. Like, it's a little bit of revenge.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's a place to do it, it's a place like Windsor.
Yeah.
Right. All three of you guys placed there too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a tough tournament.
Yeah, it's a great tournament. It's one of the best, maybe the best individual tournament upstate New
And
York.
I think
other
we
than
wrestled
Eastern
two of
States.
them up. We wrestled JJ at 110 and
Ada
Ada
was
at
at
138.
Okay, yep.
So, I mean,
Nice.
it was good to get different looks. I mean, our schedule really helped us this year seating wise.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like we're gonna have a 2, a 3, and a 6
Great.
at the state tournament.
Ooh,
We
it's
got-
only a 3.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
No.
I'm-
Two.
Oh,
Two
yeah,
would
okay.
be the 3.
Yeah,
Okay.
2, 3, 6.
Okay.
It'll be a
good.
6, so that could be a
So
semi.
we'll semi.
Oh, yeah.
State semi teammates.
That'd be pretty cool though.
Seen it before.
Yeah.
Crazier things have happened.
Yeah, but I feel like our schedule really helped us this year. You know,
For sure.
It was the first year back to a full schedule. We had Easterns.
Yep.
We picked up some section champ wins in Easterns.
Yep.
Beat some state placers. I mean, you got to have that. You got to wrestle tough guys if you want to perform in February in Albany.
For sure. So we had another good overall season for Newfane. They won their 9th straight NO title, tied with Pioneer for the most consecutive league titles I think right now in the section. We went to that Wilson match back in when was that December?
Yeah.
An exciting match. They'll represent pretty well. We'll talk about them afterwards, but. Yeah, I don't know. Looking forward to a good state tournament. It wouldn't be the same without any Newfane guys there, or multiple Newfane guys. It would be weird if we only had one. So it's one of those teams, Francis, that is almost an expectation to send more than one any given year. Obviously, we all know Jilly is a 2-time returning state place winner, but getting 2 more guys there, putting them on the record boards, representing the section. It should be a ton of fun, and Newfane fans always show up extremely well though too. They travel very well. It's not just usually friends. It's not just usually family. It's a lot of friends, a lot of program supporters. You don't really have any skin in the game anymore. I always see a ton of Newfane fans there. They travel extremely well.
Our alumni too.
Alumni, very strong alumni base. Yep.
So where are you guys heading off to next?
Undisclosed location.
Oh.
Yeah, they got practice in a while, so we're gonna head out and just with other state tournament reps and stuff like this. So yeah. So I guess just good luck, guys, and thanks for coming in this morning. We appreciate it.
Oh,
Any last questions there,
yeah.
Francis?
I don't have any questions. Anything last thing from you guys?
We'd just like to say to free the U back home.
And that's all we got.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thanks for coming in, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. This is High School Sports Saturday. We'll be right back with more wrestling coverage.
Western New York Immediate Care's new locations are now open. Whether you've suffered a minor injury or just aren't feeling well, Western New York Immediate Care provides safe, quick, high-quality care at an affordable cost. Our clinicians are trained to diagnose and treat non-life-threatening injuries and illnesses and are equipped with on-site x-ray and labs to help you feel better, faster. With 4 convenient locations open 7 days a week, Western New York Immediate Care is here to help when and where you need us. Visit us online to learn more.
Do you insure a lot of businesses?
Yes, we do.
How about restaurants?
We got a bunch.
Do you cover property damage?
Yes, we do.
How about my equipment?
Covered.
How about sewer backup?
We got it.
What if my cook gets hurt?
They're covered.
Foodborne illnesses?
Covered.
What if my party tent goes down?
Covered under property damage.
And you say this is all under one policy?
One policy.
When do I pay?
Once a month.
Just one time?
Just one.
Is there anything you don't cover?
What's your record for consecutive questions asked?
31.
Tables. We don't do tables.
Gotta love Buffalo.
For all your insurance questions, call the Wolf at 835-WOLF.
Logistics Plus is a global transportation provider headquartered in Erie, PA, with locations worldwide, including right here in Western New York. Logistics Plus is consistently recognized as a fast-growing transportation and logistics company, great supply chain partner, top freight broker, leading project cargo manager, and a great place to work. With a strong passion for excellence, our 500-plus employees put the plus in logistics. Call our Buffalo office today for an efficient, personal approach for all of your transportation needs.
I love being home.
There's nothing better than owning the perfect house to come home to. You've earned it, and we'll make it happen. Our local real estate experts and in-house team of financial professionals make buying or selling your home simple. Howard Hanna. Home happens here.
I love being home.
high school sports Saturday. We want to thank Newfane Wrestling for coming in before their practice at an undisclosed location. Or
Yeah.
Is it officially a practice? Or
No, yeah, I mean, like, yeah,
Scouting?
they're just practicing for states. It's just a state tournament practice. Everybody else is practicing today. A lot of these teams will head out on, like, well, there's no school next week, right?
That's right, and President's Day, too.
President's Day is Monday, no school next week, so a lot of them will start heading out, like, Wednesday afternoon. I'm heading out on Thursday morning, taking the train. Shout out Frontier Wrestling. We had Frontier Wrestling and Coach Chowski.
Were you going
and
on the
gang.
Amtrak?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's the
nice.
best way. So I'll go on a rant here. The best way to get to states, if you're in Buffalo, is take the train. It is awesome. You sit on the train, you get on into Depew or downtown Exchange Street at like 7 in the morning. You sit there and glide for 5 hours. You end up in Albany, downtown Albany, a mile away from everything. It's like a $10 Uber ride. It's the best thing in the world. Sunday, you get up. You don't have to drive yourself across the state. You just plop yourself on the train and just come on back. So I'm heading out on 7 o'clock on Thursday morning. And I have a standing meeting every year because Coach Chowski at Frontier has figured out that it is efficient and it's convenient and it's easy. So anytime Frontier has had kids at the state tournament the last couple of years, which they've had a number of them. They'd sent three to the state tournament last year. They always hop on the train in Depew, and we just have like a sit-down 5-hour conference. So it's a lot of fun. Colin Edwards, who was their section champ this year, asked me after the finals if I was going to ride the train with him. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. So.
Yeah, I know Frank's a big Amtrak guy. I've never been on there, but I've always wanted to try it because you can go on, you can get your work done.
Yep.
Whatever, because they have Wi-Fi or whatever, and you're just kind of going along, taking a nap.
And with gas nowadays, I mean, it's financially efficient given how much gas is, and then you're adding up, exit 50 in Buffalo to exit 1 or whatever, or 25 in Albany. So you're going across the state. You're paying the entire toll from the entire length of the upstate portion of the thruway. And then you're not putting the wear and tear on your vehicle either, so it's kind of nice.
How much is a ticket nowadays?
It's not that. If you get on early enough, it's not very expensive. I think I paid $85 for a round trip ticket,
that's
so
not bad.
it's not that at all. It stops a couple places. It stops in Rochester, Rome, Syracuse, Utica, and Schenectady, but just for like a minute or two, and then it goes on. So it's good.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get into. So last week, let me bring back up. So last week was the individual championships. We had Section 6 Saturday, large schools, small schools, and then the Catholics were on Sunday. So let's start with the large schools. It looked like Niagara Wakefield really made out. They were kind of the kings of that tournament for the large schools.
Yeah, they were. They had 7 state tournament qualifiers, which sets a new program and section record. They had 3 sectional champions. They had 2 kids win who took 3rd place, who beat the finalists in their weights to then earn themselves a spot to go to the state tournament. And then they had another one or 2 wrestle. At least one of them wrestled a true second place match, but defended his position, winning the true second place match after the final. So, so Wakefield kind of cleaned up.
Was that kind of expected? In terms of once the dust settled, that Wakefield would come out as one of the top teams out of there.
I mean, one of the top teams, yes. I didn't expect 7 wrestlers though, but that just goes to show. I mean, these kids, just like these Newfane guys, Wakefield wrestlers who come up through that program, wrestling for Coach Sweeney and Coach Plotz and the gang, has spent more time than most in NWAA or Power Cats or Niagara Falls Wrestling Club as youth. By the time they get to be 7th or 8th graders and they're ready to be on varsity, they're far ahead of most others at the same age, not just cumulatively. I'm not going to say individually, but cumulatively, the class of 7th graders or 8th graders at Wakefield is probably going to be better than most anywhere else, at least in this part of the state. They're just very well prepared, and I mean, that's a fact. That's not me haven't taken a side here. That's just the way it is. I mean, obviously the strongest programs have good modified coaches and have good Pee-wee programs, that's for sure. But the sheer volume of the young athletes who sign up, boys and girls who sign up to wrestle for NWAA and Power Cats when they're kids in Niagara Falls Wrestling Club is just like, I mean, it's enormous, and you play the law of averages when it comes to, you always see a big base of kids wrestling Pee-wee anywhere you go. but it becomes a pyramid just like everything else. You know, the attrition rate kind of takes into effect where maybe you have, say you look at like a modified team that has 15 eighth graders, sometimes you might only end up with 2 or 3 of them as seniors. That's just the way that's the way everything works. Basketball, hockey, it's not just wrestling, it's the same. So, but yeah, I mean, in terms of expectations, yeah, I mean, we field expects their standard is to have 7 wrestlers make the state tournament. I didn't think that 7 would make it. Just like looking through who was there, I'm happy for them. I congratulate them for sure. I mean, I love to get a history lesson from Coach Rick, who's in his 47th year of coaching. He's a living legend around here. He's been coaching longer than most of the head coaches now have even been alive. Yeah, I mean, they had a great day. Niagara Falls had a great day as well. They had 3 champions. They had a finalist who didn't wrestle for the true second, and then they did have a true second place winner as well, and that was Cam Hall at 215 pounds, who defeated the finalist in the runner-up finalist. So between the Falls and Wheatfield, they're sending 12 wrestlers between those 2 schools to the big school tournament. So that's a huge accomplishment. And like I said before, they're 13 section champs, are 13 runners-up. So between the 2 sections, between Division 1 and 2, that's 26 plus 26 is 54. And when the addition of the 2 Monsignor Martin Catholic Schools champions, we have 56 wrestlers from Western New York going to the state tournament.
56 out of how many do you think are total?
Oh, I mean in the whole tournament?
Yeah.
Hundreds.
Hundreds? Okay.
Yeah. So you're talking, okay, how many weight? I can't remember off the top of my head how many.
So
in a weight
this
class.
runs from Thursday to Saturday?
No, it's Friday morning to Saturday night.
Okay, wow, and they get through hundreds of wrestlers, and they get down
There's 8 mats, yeah.
Wow.
They have to fly through them. Yep. There's 8 mats on the floor now. It used to be like 6 or 7, or maybe there's 9 now. I don't know, but the entire floor of the MVP Arena, not Times Union anymore, MVP Arena, at least on Thursday, is all mats. So yeah, it's loaded up with mats on Thursday, and then they remove some, or Friday, and then they remove some for Saturday because a lot of the wrestlers are going to be out by the time Friday night rolls around because that blood round we had talked about. So Falls. So Wheatfield sends 7, Falls sends 5. Hamburg Eden team is sending 4 wrestlers, 2 wrestlers from Eden, 2 from Hamburg. Remember, they have a combined team this year. They had a very good showing last weekend. Kenny Schmitz and Luke Smeeder from Hamburg, and then Trevor and Bryce Delapenta from Eden. Trevor and Bryce were finalists in the big school tournament, and Kenny and Luke both won. Lancaster sending 3 wrestlers. So some of the usual names that we know, right? Some of the typical names around the area we know. Williamsville North, of course, sending our buddy Cam Catrabone. North Tonawanda had a champion, Dylan Gagnon, 152 pounds. And then Colin Edwards from Frontier at 102 was back at weight this year, was a section finalist last year, won this year. Very experienced freshman. And then Jack McDonald from Orchard Park is going to represent them, the Quakers, at 189 pounds. And he was actually my wrestler of the week this week as well. Great football player, great wrestler, really, really committed. I learned a little bit about him with Coach Teal and Coach Taylor telling me about Jack, and he's really dedicated himself to off-season wrestling. And I made a point, it kind of stuck out to me how rare it is for a big guy like that who's 200 pounds or so to be committing himself to wrestling and not football, which is great. I love to see, but you see so many times an athlete that's that big and athletic where they might lean towards football. I'm glad to see one at least leaning towards wrestling. It's good. Jack's had a ton of success this year. He was an Eastern States place winner. He went to states last year as a state qualifier, and he's looking to be the Quakers' first state place winner since 2004. If you can believe that. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Matt, we were at the Division I. Real quick before we take a break, because I know I want to take a break, and then we can get to everything else.
Yep.
Was there one performance that really impressed you above all the others? One wrestler, or I know we talked about Wheatfield as a team, but you saw those finals. What really impressed you from those matchups?
Good question. I really liked Ian Peterson at 110 pounds from Niagara Falls. He was a section champ last year. Took a couple of losses this year. Spent a lot of time early on at 118 pounds, and in the 110-pound final, he got some redemption against a rival from Grand Island who had actually defeated him in their dual meet. Ian looked very, very good. I think he racked up 32. I tallied his points. I think he had 32 or 34 individual match points and only gave up 2 last Saturday. So he was very impressive. I like seeing the Matthews brothers, Trammell and Tayshawn, at 132 and 138, both very impressive going back to the state tournament. They were both runners-up last year. Dylan Gagnon from North Tonawanda, it was a 1 versus 2 battle in the final against Cam Millender from Sweet Home, who was a section finalist last year. Gagnon got a late takedown to take a 1-point lead with like 10 seconds left. Millender escaped to tie it, and they went to overtime. And Cam Millender took a number of shots, but Dylan Gagnon just had really good defense. And one particular shot in overtime from Millender, he resisted, and he actually took the Sweet Home wrestler right to his back, and he got the takedown and the near fall points to secure the Section 6 title, 152 pounds. That was very impressive. I liked seeing Luke Smeeder at 172 had a great day with a big rival from Lancaster, so a big ECIC rival between the two. Smeeder just was one of a good matchup between two kids that like to get after it that I've seen this year. And Smeeder is one of those guys, great lacrosse player as well. And he had a shot taken on him, and when the wrestler missed on the shot, he kind of backed up or whatever. He kind of like wanted to reset himself, and Smeeder attacked right then and there and put him down and got the pin right on the line. So that was very impressive to see too. So, all of the finals and all the sectional champions were impressive in my opinion. But those are those were some of the matches that really stuck out to me.
All right, so that was the large schools. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the small schools. We're also going to talk about the Catholic tournament that was on Sunday.
Yep.
And later we'll talk about where you're going later this afternoon.
Okay.
This is High School Sports Saturday on WNY Athletics.
Does he do car? Forget about it. How about home? Forget about it. Does he get good rates? Forget about it. And you're saying there's no problem too big for this guy? Forget about it. Paul, this is Johnny, the guy we've been talking about. Johnny, this is Paul Wolf.
Mr. Wolf, it's nice to meet you. Thank you for the invite.
Not a problem. It's Paul, not Mr. Wolf.
Oh, sorry, Paul.
Johnny, forget about it. For all your insurance needs, call 835-WOLF and...
Avoiding care can lead to worse problems. Don't delay care. We're here for you.
When you're ready to buy a home, start your search at howardhanna.com. You'll be the first to see new listings, find similar properties, and connect with a local Howard Hanna agent. Get started today at howardhanna.com.
Welcome back to High School Sports Saturday. Francis Beck, Matt O'Rourke here, talking wrestling, individual championships last weekend. So this is kind of a recap.
Yep.
Look ahead to states. Because that's right, states individuals the last
next weekend.
Yeah, the next weekend. That's it for you, right?
Yep, that's it. And
then you take a long vacation.
I
right?
don't know what to do with myself after that, but yeah. Let's since we have some time, we'll get back into some of the Division I results, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We talked about some of the champions. So from Wheatfield, we had 3 champs. From the Falls, we had 3 champs. From Hamburg Eden, we had 2. And Frontier. So I mean, all sides of the city. I guess if you're talking about South Towns, right around Buffalo, and then Niagara County, of course, was very impressive with the wrestlers. I kind of like me being like a history big fan of history and a big fan of geography. I love to like analyze, and also there's like a college football account on Twitter that does like their empires, where like one team beats another one, and they just kind of like pile on like who beat who. So you see like the beginning of the season on Twitter, they have it like a map of the entire country separated by county, and they're like, okay, well UB, like their regions like Niagara County, Erie County, Chautauqua County, for example. And then like if UB beats like, I don't know, Ohio University or something, they'll go to like the counties that are where Athens, Ohio is, and they'll be like like a UB flag there. So it's kind of cool. I love seeing I'm kind of nerd out like that, where I'm like, okay, well, who's like wrestling empires beating the other one this week? So it's kind of cool to see. I like it also, but it also makes sense a little bit too, because where everyone lives is normally where they wrestle their clubs, right? So like if you see these Hamburg, Eden, Frontier guys, Orchard Park guys, you can probably assume they wrestle Lake Erie Wrestling Club in Hamburg. If you see all these Niagara Falls and Wheatfield and kids, you probably say, okay, well, they probably are wrestled Niagara Falls Wrestling Club together, like Power Cats or Team Niagara in the off season, which is a big deal. It kind of separates itself like that because every year, clubs come and go and practice facilities come and go, and it's interesting to see where these wrestlers spend their time in the off season, and what that and who comes out of those clubs and how that relates to success at the next level, right? I mean, off season wrestling, traveling, putting in the work is a necessary evil for kids that want to be successful. I mean, obviously, great athletes, very strong wrestlers, that lift a lot of weights. Those are all great and stuff, but that used to be able to get you by maybe 20 years ago. It doesn't as much anymore. So it's interesting to kind of follow where these kids live and what clubs they spend their time with, and how many of them or who moves on to state tournament success or success at the state dual meet level when you have a whole team of them. You know what I'm saying? So,
Matt, I want to point out to our audience there, I should bring up the two screen. You know what? Sorry, I'm used to not doing this on my own. But Matt, when last year we were together Division I, and I showed you the Division II final results, you had a little look in your eye at them. What did you think of those Division II results?
From this year?
From this year.
From this one. Yeah, okay. Chautauqua Lake really stood out to me. They have 6 wrestlers going in the state tournament. They had a pair of champions. Chautauqua Lake's had a great season. We know that. They were Section 6 dual meet champions. They wrestled the best team in small schools in their pool round, unfortunately, at the state duels, because I think that they raised some serious eyebrows at the state dual meet tournament. They wrestled Tioga, and I had cruised by some of the Tioga coaches last year, in passing, and I said, hey, I think Chautauqua might be the best team in small schools next year. We'll see. Obviously, Falconer is always going to be a powerhouse. Newfane, obviously. So I Pioneer, the usual suspects, right? And I'm glad that Chautauqua made me look good, but they had a really great season, and now they're going to get the payoff with 6 wrestlers going to the state tournament. It's the most. So there's a couple of schools obviously involved in that team. Some of them have very small beds numbers. Ripley kids who go to the elementary school there ultimately go to Chautauqua Lake High School because there is no more Ripley High School. So the last time they sent this many wrestlers was in 2008, and they had 4 wrestlers go to the state tournament from Ripley. So that just shows you how much things change in a short amount of time. Obviously, if you've ever been to Ripley, it's a very small town. So I'm happy to see Chautauqua Lake doing well at that. Let's see, Wilson was one that raised some eyebrows for me. Shout out to Coach Carlo and the gang and the Lakemen. They had probably their best team in program history this year. They smashed almost every record off the record board. They sent 2 wrestlers to the state tournament in the entire history of Wilson Wrestling. They're sending 3 this year. A section champ, Jacob Stevenson, who was actually the lowest seeded wrestler last weekend to win a sectional title at 160 pounds. And then runners-up, Victor Cusadas and Hamza Merrick, who both won their true second-place matches. Actually, Victor took 3rd in the weight class and then defeated the finalist at 118 pounds to go to the state tournament. Who else? Southwestern had a trio of champions this year. They had the most in Division II. Kenji Walters was one of the ones who I think you had mentioned that I was a little interested by the results. Kenji was back at weight at 110 pounds this year and defeated the top seed, Dominic Calera from Medina, who's a returning section finalist and 7th place winner in New York State. So Kenji had a great day. Carmine Calamari was a returning place winner in the state and won his 2nd straight sectional title. And then at 172, I saw Tavio Hoos, who's a freshman. I would say top 3 freshman in Section 6 right now. And also at a very high weight, right? At 172 pounds, you see a lot of seniors and juniors at that weight. Tavio had a great day, has been very outstanding this season. He defeated Pioneer's Brady Heckathorn in a very good match. Brady will go back to the state tournament as our number 2 at that weight, auto qualifier this year. But Tavio, very impressive. And that was actually one of the deeper weight classes for once. At 172, it's kind of one of those weights where it's weird. You don't see as many. There was 5 returning sectional place winners at 172 small schools this year, including a section champ, a section finalist, and both of whom obviously are returning state tournament qualifiers. So it was a very interesting weight class this year, and that was one of the results I had my eye on. 189 was one of the ones that stuck out to me as well. Unfortunately, one of the top seeds got bounced before weigh-ins because of the skin check. So it kind of opened the door a little bit more for any of the other 3 top seeds. And Matt Trim from Maple Grove actually won that weight. It was very impressive during the day. Trevor Berry at 215 won. Trevor's only won by pin or technical fall this year. I've seen him wrestle a couple times. Took his energy and the riding high from the football season, and he's brought it to wrestling in a big way. I mean, I'm hoping to see a really big matchup between him and the returning state champion from Homer at 215. That would be really something to see. Homer has a returning state champ. His name's Sam Sorensen, going to West Point next year. Absolute, just unstoppable young man at that weight class. And then Ryan Carpenter, who's another obviously good football player, won the 285-pound weight class last weekend in small schools. We had a trio of wrestlers from Falconer. Falconer missed the state tournament last year, kind of a rare year for them. However, they had a section champ this year, Austin Chase in 145, and then 2 finalists with Dylan Newman, who actually lost to Felda JJ, who was just here in the sectional final, and then also Brody Little at 160 pounds. So Falconer will have a couple reps in the state tournament. We already talked to our Newfane guys, JJ, Aiden, and Aiden. And then from Chautauqua Lake, we had a pair of champions with Jordan Johnson at 126, who's had a very impressive season, and John Watson at 152. 152 was he was a top seed in the weight class and definitely took third in the section last year, and rightfully so, is getting a shot at the state tournament. But other than John, one of those interesting weights where not a ton of returning talent. I mean, I wrote about it where previewing the tournament, nobody in the weight class is a returning section finalist or returning state tournament qualifier. So 2 kids were going to get their first time shot at winning the sectional title, making the state tournament. So it was kind of a free-for-all in that weight. Very, very thin on returning section place winners and returning postseason place winners or anybody who's made a big run in the postseason in recent years. So.
All right. That was the small schools, right? Everything.
Oh well, let me mention though too.
Anything else from the small schools you want to get to?
Yeah. So I mean, Chautauqua had four runners up, 4 kids either lose in the final or win that true second place match. I want to shout out Pioneer Xander Kirsch as well at 138. Won a very big match. A young man's been trying very hard to get to the state tournament for a number of years and has just barely fallen short a couple of times. Coach Edwards is going to ride out his last tournament as head coach of the Panthers with a pair of wrestlers at the state tournament. I'm very excited for that. Shout out to Coach Edwards. I wrote about him a couple weeks ago. I've got a good friendship with him, good relationship with the Pioneer community. It reminds me very much of where I came from, and I can't get enough of Pioneers wrestling. They're absolutely fantastic, great to work with. Ton of history there. One of the longest standing traditions in Western New York. There's only ever been 3 head coaches in the program history, which started in the late 60s. So figure that one out. And 2 of them are in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. So, I mean, that stability and the tradition there is
big shoes
unrivaled.
to fill for whoever takes over. Do we know yet?
No, I'm not sure yet. Big shoes to fill in terms of the tradition, and also big actual shoes to fill. So looking forward to seeing Coach Edwards and the Panthers. Coach Edwards' last ride in the state tournament this week. And then also, so I had alluded to a wrestler who came back from an early loss in the sectional tournament, and this is Iroquois freshman Alex Schiffauer, lost in the quarterfinals at the sectional tournament, won 3 straight decisions, so 3 straight 6-minute matches in the consolations, including an overtime, to take 3rd place. And then won another decision in the true second place match. Absolute warrior for a freshman at 152 pounds. His brother Michael was a section champ and a state tournament place winner not too long ago. But Alex Schiffauer for Coach Clock did a really nice, had one of those performances where it sticks out as much as almost to you as a champion. When you look at the brackets and you go through, and you go, oh my God, this guy lost in the quarterfinals and then won 4 straight 6-minute matches. So he wrestled 24 full minute matches plus an overtime match in there as well to end up punching his ticket to the state tournament. That's legendary stuff. That's why wrestling's such a great sport, is because of stuff like that, individual performances like that.
And also Sunday at St. Mary's was Catholics. Now, is that all the state Catholic tournament, or was that just Monsignor Martin?
So it's all the Catholic schools, the CHSAA member schools, the Catholic High School Athletic Association. It was at St. Anthony's this year. Every 4 years, it rotates from Hudson Valley, Long Island Catholic schools to 1 year in Buffalo. So last year it was at St. Mary's. This year it was at the field house at St. Francis High School or St. Anthony's High School in Huntington. Really nice collegiate level field house, really great facilities. We had a pair of champions from St. Joe's and 3-time CHSAA champ Austin Zimmerman now, and then also Nick Macero. Both of them are juniors. Nick enrolled this year, took third in the Section 6 last year from Grand Island, and enrolled this year and found obviously a ton of success. Great practice partner with Austin Zimmerman, and also another guy we'll get to. Really great lower weight group, all three of whom are coming back next year for the Marauders. So I texted Coach Kennedy. They had a great day. They were very happy with their performance. They had two champs, a runner-up at 160 pounds, and a third-place winner, I think 132, and that was Jason Klein, who fell, I think, to only the eventual champion or eventual finalist. I'm sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head, but Klein has had an amazing season. I think he was down 9-1 or 9-2 going into the third period of a consolation final match, either semifinal or final, and ended up winning 11-10. So he just went to town, and he was on top too, right? He had to start the period on top. So I mean, usually when you're down by 7 or 8 points like that, it's kind of like a case closed, unless something crazy happened. Well, something crazy happened, and he ended up taking third place. So I was very impressed with Jason at the dual meet, the Snake Pit match against St. Francis a couple weeks ago. So I'm looking forward to a big season from him next year. And then also shout out to Luke Ventresca, who was their 4-year starter for the Marauders and also won the Ironman Award the CHSAA gives out to wrestlers who place in all 4 years of their high school at the CHSAA tournament. He fell in the finals. But yeah, Zimmerman and Macero both going to the state individual tournament. It's rare. I mean, obviously the CHSAA tournament, there's some great wrestlers in it, some great teams. In the last couple of years, the Marauders have maybe had a champ here and there. So it's very nice for them, and Coach Kennedy was very happy with punching 3 guys through the state tournament. We had St. Francis. St. Francis won the Division II CHSAA team title. There's 17 teams in the CHSAA tournament this year, and they split it up in 2000, according to Coach Masor of St. Francis. They split it up, or not 2000, sometime in the past. Maybe it was 2000. I can't remember. I wrote about it. My brain's fried. In the past, they split it up by schools of similar size enrollment, much like we do in the public school realm of big schools and small schools. So like St. Anthony's and like Monsignor Farrell, St. Joe's is in the big school enrollment category. So St. Francis is in the small school one. St. Francis actually won what they give out for their Division II team title amongst 9 other CHSAA teams. They had 5 place winners. They had 1 finalist with Sean Gordon, who's a freshman at 118 pounds. And they had a couple of other good performances. They had a 3rd place winner from Connor Miller, just coming off of an injury. Has had a great season before that and finished up with having a great season, back in time for the postseason. Brandon Drummond, James Gordon, and Jack Coughlin, all place winners as well for the Red Raiders. Canisius competed. They had 2 guys place 3rd. Both of them were warriors in the wrestlebacks. I wrote about them. I went through the results on Monday or Tuesday, and I saw what they did, and I was very excited for them. Reese Spiro and Caleb McKenzie both had really nice performances in the wrestlebacks in their respective weights, and then St. Mary's had a pair of place winners as well with Quinn Brown and Sheldon Cunningham. So an all-around pretty good day. 13 place winners representing Monsignor Martin, which is pretty good considering last year we had, I think, a pretty large senior class. And a lot of these young guys are going to be coming back next year for their respective schools as well. I know 3 of those 4 I mentioned from St. Joe's will be back. St. Francis is only losing 1 of their 4 or 5 place winners, so it'll be really nice for the association for next year. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing St. Joe's in the gang in Albany, and I mean all around another pretty solid year for Monsignor Martin.
Matt, an offshoot of that, and this you can bring in the public schools into this too. How does Western New York and upstate wrestling kind of compare to downstate wrestling?
I mean, So I'll just lump it in. I'll lump the Catholic schools in the same way. With upstate wrestling, we're stronger, I would say, than the counterparts of similar size, enrollment size schools in the downstate portion of New York. I'm mostly talking downstate as the island. I guess, I mean, if you want to, I'm thinking about it in the way, so the National Wrestling Hall of Fame splits up. There's an upstate division, which includes everything north of the city, and there's a downstate chapter, which includes New York City and Suffolk and Nassau counties. So I guess we'll split it up that way. Traditionally, our small schools are a little better, just mostly because, I mean, a lot of it, I mean, you can call it a number of things. There's less small schools on the island than there is because the enrollments are so big, where most of them are classified in A or AA or bigger. It just so happens that you can basically look at, if you look at the history of the state tournament in terms of the team scoring, most of the pretty much any given year since we've gone to the split division, the one in big school, small school division, pretty much any given year you'll see sections 11, 5, or 8. Section 5 is kind of the outlier. You'll see either section 5 or 8 normally win the Division I big school team title, and then in small schools, traditionally you'll see section 3, 5, 4 win that one. That's just kind of the way it works out. Section 5 is the outlier. Section 5, obviously our neighbors just to the east have a fantastic tradition. I call it the fortress because they're tucked in between Section 6 and Section 3. Also Pennsylvania to the south and Section 4 to the southeast underneath Section 3. But Section 5 has, I've gotten to know many people from those schools, and they've always had a nice thing going on there. And I mean, a couple of years ago, they won both the Division I and II titles in the same year. That was 2019. I mean, that's a huge deal for them, right? To have the best, to be able to take down Suffolk and Nassau counties in the big school, and to take down the Syracuse area, the Binghamton area, and the Buffalo area in small schools, huge deal for them. That was really great to, I'm a big fan of that. And if Section 5 can do it, they set the tone for the upstate sections, I would say, across the board amongst big school and small school. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to say who's better in terms of what the section, the weight, the heavyweights. I mean, small schools has really been held the power in upstate New York, and then the balance of power has really been in downstate. Either
in
section,
terms of the large schools.
Yeah, in large schools. Section 11, Suffolk County. Section 8, Nassau County. And obviously Section 9 last year won the team title, mostly due to a very, very powerful Menacing Valley team who had 3 state champions. So I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for in that. I mean, some of the best wrestlers in the country come out of Suffolk County who end up going on to major Division I universities and win national titles. I mean, that's just a fact. We see it every year. I guess in terms of talent-wise, top to bottom, you might look at Section 8 or 11 as being the best big schools. I mean, at 126, I'm waiting to see where the seeds come out. But 126 pounds big schools this year, I know for a fact we're going to have 6 returning state place winners, including a returning state champ and finalist who took 3rd in Section 8 this year. So figure that one out.
When are the seeds going to come out for states?
They should be out later today. Maybe finalized tomorrow or by Monday, but the state committee is getting together today, I think. So they take about a week. They take a couple days to obviously wrap up all the section results, get all of the points in, see who's in, who qualified, and then they spend some time, working with each of the coaches just to make sure, the records are right, who they beat is right, they're getting the right amount of points for the right amount of wins or losses, or who beat who head-to-heads. And once they finalize all that, they bring it in, and the state committee ends up doing the seeds of state tournament. So that should be out later today, I think. Maybe unofficially. I'm not sure if it'll be official till Monday. We'll
okay, and I'm sure we'll see. You'll put out the brackets and you'll tell us what you think of them.
Yeah, I'll preview it. But I can tell you right now off the top of the bat, 126 big schools is going to be very interesting. I think we could see some really interesting semifinals in that one. It could be an all Section 8 versus Section 6 battle.
Do you think what are the chances Section 6 gets a couple of first seeds?
I think it's good. I see in big schools, I see Cam Catcherbone getting a first seed. I think that's likely. I'm not going to say I know anything for sure because I don't know. I'm not an expert on all of the points, and I don't have all of the information right in front of me. So I'm not going to say I guarantee anything. but I like the chances for Cam Catcherbone to get a top seed. He's ranked top 12 in the country. He won the Eastern States this year. He's a Powerade finalist. He took third at Beats of the East. He's had a
he won all by pins at last Saturday at NT.
Yeah, he did, and that was kind of expected. I'll admit. But I see Cam getting a top seed. I could see Jaden Crumpler from Niagara Falls getting a top seed at 126. I could see a top seed. I'm not sure where else. Those are probably our two most likely for big schools. In small schools, I could see a top seed. Let's see here, from Gilly. Well, actually, they already figured maybe a 2 seed for him or a 3 seed, so that would make more sense. I'm not sure if we'll get a top seed at or in the small schools. I could see maybe, depending on who's there, Tavio at 172. But there might be some wrestlers who have a lot more points than him because he's only a freshman still. He won the Section 6 title last year as an 8th grader at 160. So Tavio is certainly qualified from a talent standpoint, but I don't know about points just because he just doesn't have as many years under his belt. Maybe a senior does. So we'll see about that.
Now, do your points, is it just everything that you did this season? Is it cumulative? Is it anything, just stuff outside of high school count towards that?
No, not outside of high school. It doesn't it's only in-season results. I mean, I'm not sure. I can't say exactly if a state wrestling committee member would say, okay, well, he did this at Fargo or did this at Fargo, which is off-season stuff. I'm sure that might weigh heavily in some of their minds to say, okay, well, he was a cadet, whatever, qualifier or Fargo champion in Greco or something. But the points, the actual data only relies on in-season accomplishments. And it does take into account like past state tournament placements, qualifications, stuff like that. So, yeah, I could see a pair of top seeds in Division I. We might have a tough time getting some top seeds in Division II. But either way, we'll see what happens. I'm not, like I said, I'm not, I'm always surprised every year at some of the seeds. And they always introduce new seeding mechanics in trying to fine-tune the state tournament as best they can. The Section 9 chairman, Jeff Quilty, does a really good job with some of the math. He's kind of a whiz with some of the math and the formulas. And I know the state wrestling committee is always trying to put it in the best interest of the state to strengthen the state tournament, get the best wrestlers involved who qualify for it, and seed it as absolutely best they can so that the path to the final is fair across the board for the most accomplished wrestlers and fair to the wrestlers who qualify who are maybe a first-time qualifier to test them, and rightfully so. I mean, some of these wrestlers have set their schedules up in a manner where they're thinking about seeding at the state tournament in the first week of the season. It just, you know what I mean? When you have a really
they want to gain as much, they want to wrestle against the top competition, try to beat them so they can get as many points as possible. So they're set up.
And they might know that they're going to wrestle somebody from an out-of-section team twice that year, but that's a strategic move. A lot of wrestlers, a lot of coaches make their schedules just for that reason. Obviously, they'll put their team and get the competitions they need, but a major scheduling component for a lot of coaches is, okay, well, where am I going to get I have the best guy in the state at 145 pounds. Where am I going to put him, when it comes to head-to-heads that are going to have implications on seeding at the end of the season? Like, that's a major component of scheduling for the top wrestlers and the top teams in New York State.
So let's break that down for a second. Let's say you do face a guy that you're probably going to face later in the state tournament. Does that affect your strategy in that first match? I don't want to say hold back, but I know like sometimes in football, if you face a team at the end of the regular season, we're going to face them in the first rounds. You may not show your whole playbook. Do you really do that in wrestling, or
no?
You just try to do
wrestle.
Your best?
You wrestle to win the matches in wrestling. There's really no other way to go about it. The result is the result, but there's really no other way to. I mean, you try to win the matches. I'm trying to find. I know what you're asking. And I'm trying to find a way to find a way.
There's no way you don't hold off your cards or anything. You don't save anything.
Not really. No. You wrestle to win the match. That's pretty much it. So, it's like sometimes when I hear people who may not know a lot about wrestling and they see a team get beat 78-0, right? 78-0 is the max score in a match. That's 13 weight classes, and all of them were a pin, right? I'm going to do the math just to make sure. So 13 weights, times 6 is 78. So the max score in a match is 78 points. That means all 13-year guys got 16 points. Either they pinned or got a forfeit. And I've actually seen it. It's crazy to me how some people sometimes will say, well, why'd you have to run out the score like that? Isn't that absurd? You wrestle to win and you wrestle to pin. That's what you do.
Well, yeah, and it's individual. You know,
A coach is never going to look at you, at Francis, and say, "Okay, Francis, you know we're at Kenmore East, where you went to high school. We're wrestling West, and you're in the last weight class. And if you pin them, we're going to win 78-0. So I want you to only win by decision. So we win 75-0. That's not how the sport works at all. You wrestle to win, you wrestle to pin.
Well, yeah, and you're not helping either that individual. You know, it's not fair to that individual wrestler. You're asking to throw the match and not the other ones.
It's not like in football where you can take a knee if you're up 78-0, and you should take a knee. You should have taken a knee minutes ago, right?
Yeah.
It's not. It doesn't work like that. So, it's crazy though. I've seen that sometimes. However, it's funny how I say that in a dual meet perspective, but in an individual match perspective, you don't run up the score like that. You know, I have literally seen wrestlers who were superior to others, not just in Western New York, but other places, a returning state champion playing with their food and end up getting pinned. And drama ensues. I've seen that before, too. So you have to be careful. I understand a very good wrestler wants to not just pin everybody and get some actual match time. I get that. But it's a dangerous game you play if you're a top wrestler and you just let them down, let them up, take them down, let them up, take them down. You know, public perception probably isn't going to be great, and you might end up in some trouble by getting pinned if you do that too. So it's a word of caution on that. But,
but you do have to get that. You know, you got to build up that conditioning though.
You do, but you can build up that conditioning with practicing or finding better individual tournaments. I had mentioned we talked about Cam a minute ago, so I'll pick on Cam again. Cam went out of state a couple times to sanction in-season, regular season tournaments that are 100% legitimate. Obviously, it's not like they wouldn't, but he went to Powerade, and so a couple of other wrestlers from the area did as well. He went to Beast of the East in Delaware, whereas some of his teammates went to other tournaments that were more appropriate for their skill level. Cam went on to some major tournaments and wrestled some of the other best wrestlers in the country, and that was completely 100% obviously appropriate. I'm not even questioning how or why or anything like that. Like, that's what you do. He's committed to go to Michigan and will sign when the time comes, probably this offseason. I think he'll be a junior next year. So, but that's where a wrestler who's that high a level, who's ranked 12th in the country, goes and wrestles other top-ranked wrestlers and gets the experience he needs and the conditioning he needs. You know, it comes to a point when you're that good where wrestling locally, it might not, you know, depending on who else is around here. Obviously, if the other best wrestlers in the country were in Western New York, then yeah, I might see him wrestle somewhere around here. But I mean, at some point, you know, you got to think about what you need to get out of the sport as well. Which is, I mean, it's why the sport is awesome. There's so many different variables all the time. Team implications, individual implications, you know, moving up and down weight classes and head-to-heads and wrestling your teammate in the sectional finals. We see it every year. There was two instances this year where wrestlers wrestle each other in the section finals in Niagara Falls and in Newfane. Or Wheatfield.
We saw Wheatfield.
We saw a couple Wheatfield ones too, right? So it's just such an interesting sport, and it changes all the time. It's an evolving sport. Over the years, I mean, our state tournament goes back to 1963. This wrestling in New York State was on the grounds before that, even for a couple of years. It's just been an ever-changing, ever-evolving thing in the state to try to perfect it and get to be the best wrestlers in the best environment and the actual ultimate. I mean, other states have one division. Other states have 4 or 5 divisions. Pennsylvania has like 3 or 4 state championships, and it works for them. And, you know, admittedly, they're better wrestling across the board in Pennsylvania, and but they do things a little differently as well. So, I mean, every state's obviously different. We in the state have a very big, population density-wise in terms of Pennsylvania. Outside of Long Island and New York City, we're similar. If you also take away like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, but because our population density is so centralized in one place, it throws off. It's a very, very unique challenge for the state, and it's a unique challenge for wrestling as well. So,
before we go to our last break here, because I want to get to the girls tournament later. The Newfane guy has kind of alluded to it. What is the prep like for these guys who are going to states? It's not like your normal, typical. You're still practicing with your team. How is that prep for these 2 weeks that we're in before states work?
They wrestle. So you're going to see the state tournament qualifiers wrestle with one another a lot, which means all of their practice partners are likely going to be very good wrestlers too. You'll see some conditioning, especially a week away from the tournament like today. Excuse me. You'll see a lot of conditioning. You probably won't see wrestlers coming down on weight quite yet. So you'll see, I think, a lot of conditioning. I think you'll see a lot of technique as well. Maybe some live wrestling, but I don't know if you'll see as much of that because the risk of injury is a little higher when you wrestle live. That I would say probably about that. Really not a whole lot of weightlifting, a lot of sleep, a lot of nutrition. But I think technique-wise and just like doing stuff on top and just you're not going to introduce any new moves this time of year either. You know what I mean? All these guys have what they have, and that's what they're going to ride with. I guess that's kind of the strategy for this time of year. Yeah.
All right. Anything else about the small schools or Catholics before we take a break?
I'm trying to think. Not really. I think we went over all the champions, talked about some of the teams that are going to take multiple guys to the state tournament. In Division II, there's, 23 or 26 teams. 11 teams are taking all of the 26 qualifiers for the state tournament. Only 11 of them. Yep. So there's a couple of teams that are taking one wrestler with Randolph, right, with Carpenter. Who else here? Medina with Dom Calera, who's a finalist at 110. Let's see who else here. Lakeshore, Blake Hagman was a finalist in the host school last weekend. At Lakeshore, they hosted the sectional tournament. He was a finalist at 126. He'll be heading out. And then Maple Grove's Matt Trim. And then everybody else is multiple wrestlers from the same school. 6 from Chautauqua, 3 from Southwestern, 3 from Newfane, 3 from Falconer, 2 from Pioneer, 2 from Iroquois, right? All of the usual suspects, and then 3 from Wilson, who had a great season this year. I mean, it's basically the same way in Division I. The usual suspects, Wheatfield, Falls, Lancaster, Hamburg, taking the bulk of the wrestlers to the state tournament, accounting for them. Clarence also will have 2 guys this year. Clarence didn't send anybody to the state tournament last year. I'm good friends with Coach Storr over there. Shout out to the Red Devils. They have a finalist at 132, AJ Didas, who had to then wrestle a very big third-place match. Probably the best true second-place match in the Division I side. Was a big winner in that one by pin in the first period. So AJ, a sophomore, having a great season, and then heavyweight Bryce Hawes at 285 wrestled Tommy Carlson for like the 5th time this year. He's a junior, I believe. So Clarence will have 2 guys back in the state tournament after a break last year. We have 5 Falls wrestlers, 7 Wheatfield wrestlers, blah, blah, the usual suspects, getting bored. No, it's not boring at all. Orchard Park, North Tonawanda, Williamsville, so we'll be well represented throughout the section. Obviously, the bulk of the wrestlers for the big school side are where our population density is, right? Buffalo and Niagara Falls areas. And then in small schools, it's very spread out amongst the southern tier. 12 wrestlers representing the CCAA Division I. So we have the top 3 of the top 4 teams in small schools, right? Chautauqua Lake, Falconer, and Southwestern. All 3 of them are top 3 schools in my rankings. Top 3 of the top 4. They're accounting for 12 of the wrestlers out of the 26 from their small school division, and then of course the usuals like Pioneer and Iroquois I mentioned, as well as Wilson. So we'll be all corners of the section will be well represented in Albany next week.
I do want to give a shout out though to North Tonawanda. Those kids stepped up big. They stepped up kind of last minute to host that tournament. Mm-hmm. I saw those. I was there Friday night. They came in. There was a boys basketball game. It's supposed to end at 8:30. Actually ended late, and those kids were probably there till 10:30, 11 o'clock, getting that gym ready. So big shout out to the North Tonawanda coaching staff and those kids for stepping up really for that tournament.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Francis, because I have to echo the same. We talked to Coach Dan Fire, who lives in Oklahoma these days, is a Section 6 Wrestling Coaches Hall of Fame member, a Vietnam a hero, a Purple Heart veteran, an American hero and patriot. Came home. He comes home multiple times a winter to watch wrestling because he's such a big Lumberjacks Faithful. And then Tony Fire's nephew is the head coach there. So yes, and they have a very, very big and active Pee-wee organization who stepped up when we needed them to and hosted the tournament and had a well-run, efficient tournament with lots of space, and everyone seemed to be pretty happy with it. So yeah, and then they got rewarded right with a section champion in overtime.
And that was probably one of the best matches of the.
It was a good match. Yeah, it's great. Yeah,
went to overtime.
I agree. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Francis. Good point.
All right, why don't we take a break? When we come back, Matt's going to talk about a very special event happening for the first time ever, I believe.
No, it's the fourth or fifth time.
Fourth or fifth time. Okay, very special.
Very
event.
special nonetheless.
Yeah, happening today. Matt's going to talk about that next.
Yep.
You're watching High School Sports Saturday on WNY Athletics.
With exclusive buyer insights and our 100% money-back guarantee, we're confident we'll find buyers for your home. Howard Hanna. Home happens here.
Logistics Plus is a global transportation provider headquartered in Erie, PA with locations worldwide, including right here in Western New York. Logistics Plus is consistently recognized as a fast-growing transportation and logistics company, great supply chain partner, top freight broker, leading project cargo manager, and a great place to work. With a strong passion for excellence, our 500-plus employees put the plus in logistics. Call our Buffalo office today for an efficient, personal approach for all of your transportation needs.
Sometimes it just isn't your day. We all need a little help from time to time. That's why we're committed to providing safe, quick, and cost-effective pediatric care. And we keep it simple. Just walk in. We're here for you. Learn more today.
Welcome back. High School Sports Saturday, final segment of today. We're going a little bit shorter today because we got our two big shows coming up. Again, the girls basketball preview today and the boys basketball preview tomorrow. Both of them at 2 o'clock. We're bringing in the best play. We're bringing in players from the top teams in all of Western New York. It's going to be a fun weekend for us. But first, we're going to finish up with some wrestling talk. And Matt, you said you're looking up the fourth or fifth girls sectional, girls individual tournament. Matt, why don't you tell us about that?
So it's the fourth intersectional girls tournament, they're calling it. It's kind of just a compilation of young ladies from across the state. Last year, they were represented by girls from as far away as Sherburne Earlville in Section 3. There were some young ladies from Penfield, Tioga, South Seneca, Canandaigua, Livonia, Bolivar, Richburg, Brockport, so other towns across mostly the upstate region. Sections 3, 4, 5, and 6 for the most part. I was in touch with Coach Pete Dorman this week at Chautauqua Lake. The Chautauqua Lake girls had a very successful season in their first year as being a recognized team at their school. We obviously saw a couple of teams, girls-specific teams this year. Chautauqua, Fredonia, Orchard Park has a girls team, and the combined Niagara Frontier League teams, which, you know, the plan is eventually to have enough to where they can have their own teams, but that's down the road. Right now, we're still in emerging sports status for this year and at least next year.
So how many, real quick, how many schools have their own girls teams?
Across the state or here?
You know, here in Section 6.
5.
5, okay.
St. Mary's was actually the first one, but they're not public, obviously. That's a private school. But they were established, put the resources aside in 2019 to start the first girls-only team in Western New York. But now there's 4 public school teams, and I think the list will grow next year as budgets get finalized at the end of this school year for next year, where resources and travel and equipment and salaries for coaches are set aside for girls wrestling. I think we'll see a number of new teams next year. Yeah.
And for this tournament today, this is going to be I'm assuming most of the weights will be covered?
Yeah, they should all be covered. I'm interested to see how many when I get down there. It's at Chautauqua Lake High School in Mayville, so I'm headed right out of there as soon as I leave here. And then I'll be back this afternoon for a big UB wrestling match. But I'm excited to go down. I haven't been able to make it in the past, and it has switched places with Brockport State hosted it. I think the first one might have been here. I can't remember. But anyway, it's gone back and forth between Brockport and Section 6. Niagara County Community College hosted the first one, actually. I take that back. Then I went to Brockport, and then I came back here, and then it was off for a year or something. So this is the fourth one, either way. Chautauqua hosted it last year. They're hosting it again. Chautauqua has, I think they certified 21 girls to start the season amongst all those schools down there.
That's bigger than probably some boys teams.
Yeah, it is. It for sure is. Pete Dorman and Emily Dorman are their coaches, and they've done a fantastic job in conjunction with the high school boys team, with Coach Kenny Rowe and the gang down there, and Brad Rowe, former Chautauqua Lake boys head coach, has been a big part of it as well. And obviously our section chairman for our girls wrestling is Alex Conti, who is a legendary coach in these parts and Section 6 Wrestling Coaches Association honoree as well. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of these same athletes wrestled at the first ever NISFA Girls Invitational in Syracuse the night before the boys state dual meet tournament, with some very good results and very promising future for girls wrestling in Western New York. Because girls wrestling Western New York, I mean, between Coach Conti and what Chautauqua Lake's done and some of the athletes that have come out of here has traditionally been a vanguard for girls wrestling, and I hope that they continue on the path that they're on in terms of like pioneering the sport, and at least in upstate New York.
I know we saw, was it last week? I think we saw Gabby Rowe make it to the semifinals for Division I. Maybe I'm wrong.
I know she made the semifinals. I know she placed. She took 6th. So Gabby Barone, yes, a 7th grader at Niagara Wheatfield, took 6th in the section last weekend in the boys section tournament, which was very nice. Good for her.
And then were there any at the Division II?
No place winners. No.
Okay. No. Or did do you know if any participated though?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I imagine any of them would have probably represented Chautauqua Lake, but obviously they have their own team this year. So, yep. But yeah, no, I'm excited to go see that. I haven't been to Chautauqua Lake yet. Somehow.
That's right. They're the ones with the what's it called? The light.
They have a mat light. Yeah, they have a mat light. Yeah, they used it in their big league showdown with Falconer this year. A really nice night for the program for those guys, getting a win in that match and winning the league title they took Falconer down off their 11 year in a row. They won the CCAA 1 title. Either they shared it 1 year and they won it outright 10 other years, but Chautauqua Lake, yeah, they sole possession of the CCAA 1 this year. So it's always I'm always a fan of it's good for wrestling. Like Falconer is we all know my opinions on what Falconer's done. They're an unbelievable example for wrestling, but it's always nice. It's good for wrestling when you have good matchups and good down home league matches, especially in the small schools realm where it's kind of been hurting for a number of years, and it's just good. It's just good all around for Chautauqua right now. They had a great boys season, 20 matches won, had really good performance in the state dual meet tournament, and then also now they're kind of leading the charge with their girls team as well. So yeah, I'm excited to go see that, and it's an intersectional tournament. It's kind of going to be their culminating event that they'd like to do. So we'll see how it transforms. Maybe it'll stay the same. Maybe it'll transform in the next couple of years now that we have a girls invitational. I'm interested to see. I think with the girls invitational, I would imagine that the goal is to make it a true postseason event at the end of the season, just like the boys state tournament. It just so happened that organizationally it worked out perfectly to do it the same weekend as the I'm sure there's a number of other variables, but it worked out perfectly having the mats already down and the space rented, and also to see how many people showed up to watch, which there was a very good attendance for that. So I'm interested to see. It's just like with boys wrestling I mentioned a while ago of evolving ways of, we split the divisions. We make Division 1, Division 2. We raise, we get away with the 50% weigh-in rule. We take away the point system, go to an auto qualifier thing. We wrestle the 7th and 8th place of the state tournament instead of just the 6th. I mean, it's always changing. It's the same way with girls. So it's a whole nother world that we're going to get into here pretty soon.
You talked about earlier the clubs for the youth. Let's say I'm a dad, or either I'm new to the area, or I'm not really part of the wrestling community, but I think I want to get my kid involved. What's the best way they can get their young 7-8-year-old involved in the sport so that they're at a higher level come high school?
Just wrestle. Find
who can they reach out? Who should they try to reach out to get involved and learn more?
It depends on where you live, probably. Some people travel over an hour and a half sometimes to go practice where they want to practice at. I would start with your local high school coach. All the high school coaches, public employees, of a public school. Their contact information is usually on a school website. A lot of them have their own social media, obviously, your Twitter. I mean, I fielded a couple questions this winter, to tell you the truth, people messaging me where to go or what to do for wrestling. And I'm glad to share contacts and information. It's good. I mean, if you live, like I had mentioned earlier, when it comes to the where you live and what part of town, maybe like Lake Erie Wrestling Club has always got open doors. They have Coach Page and Coach Schmitz kind of run the show for that, and they have little guys this time of year when the high school boys are wrestling, and in the off season they change their it's kind of funny how like Pee Wee wrestling will go on this time of year. And then once the high school season is over, a lot of the high school kids will go and wrestle in the off season in that same kind of space. So it's kind of like there's always enough,
like a split season sort of deal.
Yeah. This year, actually, I will mention the Pee Wees are kind of like junior level kids wrestling had actually a dual meet setup, which I'm going to get into here. I'd like to get in touch with their organizers and see how it went. But they had a dual meet season where like Newfane and North Tonawanda wrestlers, they had dual meet teams and they had dual meet environments with their Pee-wees, which is a really, really great thing we're missing at the modified level here, because the first time a lot of these kids get to high school or 7th and 8th grade and they're on a varsity team is the first time they're ever in a dual meet, where they see, like, it's not like basketball, right? Where if you play modified basketball, you play games and there's time and there's timeouts and most of the same rules apply. It's not like that in modified wrestling, unfortunately. It's kind of like a little bit of a free-for-all. In terms of the organization of it, but it mostly depends on, it's kind of driven on participation, and you can't just automatically have a wrestler to fill all 13 weights or all 10 weights or something in a dual meet. It's something that I hope we can maybe get to in the future, but at least for now, they did a really nice job with that in more so the Niagara Frontier area.
Now, do they have to come up with like different weights to account for that it's younger kids, or
I'll be
how
honest,
do they do that?
Yeah, I mean, there's gonna be a lot lighter weights because it's younger and smaller. We're talking kids here.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, Francis, I'm not really sure. I've spent almost every hour on varsity. Every hour I'm awake since November or before that on varsity level, high school level wrestling. I'm interested to see what it's all about.
I mean, obviously there's no 285-pound seventh graders.
Yeah, no.
Even middle schoolers.
It would be like less than that. We're talking like 4th, 5th, 6th, maybe even younger. So I'm interested. I'm not. I don't know for sure. I'm hoping maybe someone who's watching knows more than me could reach out. But I'm interested to see once the state tournament wraps up, finding out a little bit more how that worked this year. Very excited about that.
All right, Matt. Anything else you want to talk about with the we kind of covered a lot. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up today?
No, I'm good. So I'm glad I was able to. Usually we have to jet out of here for other stuff, which is great. Usually I have to condense a lot more into a short amount of time. So I appreciate the opportunity to just go on and on about wrestling here for an hour and a half. I expect. For next week, looking ahead to next week, I expect a couple of champions. We really need some wrestlers to step up and keep us in good standing for the auto qualifier, the 2 qualifier situation that we have for both big school and small school. It's always a battle. I know Section 5 and 4 are going to have a number of really, really great wrestlers in small schools. I know that Section 8 and 11 are going to bring some powerhouses in big schools, and it should be another dogfight in Albany. But I'm always looking forward to. I always put aside a couple who I think are guaranteed place winners, but we always get a couple where I'm like, okay, good for them. I'm glad they hit the podium as a junior, especially as like a junior or a sophomore, and we get those points back next year. It's part of our 3-year aggregate formula in terms of the power points ranking. There's power points for the sections, but not for the kids really anymore. Maybe just when it comes to seeding, when it comes to seeding. But the days of like the win differential, where you're 50-0 going into the state tournament, we don't have that as much anymore. We don't need that anymore. So it's all matchup driven now.
And encourages top wrestlers to wrestle each other.
It does,
rather than just quote unquote pad your stats.
I would agree. Because a lot of times a wrestler who didn't see anybody else very good during the season might get like a top 1 or 2 seed that maybe they didn't deserve, and you would see guys like that lose every year. Like, well, why were they the top seed? Well, this is the criteria we have. So some of that stuff's gotten away with. I think it's a little more of a common sense. I don't want to say common sense. Maybe that's not the right word to use, but
fairer approach.
Maybe fair approach, yeah. Maybe something along those lines. It's more clear for sure. There's not as much math involved, which makes it a little bit easier for the coaches. We're trying to find the best line between what makes sense and what's the most fair. You know what I mean? For everyone's situation. So I like to think we get closer and closer to that every year. I report on what goes on with the state wrestling committee. That ends up in the executive committee minutes at the state level, central committee minutes.
Yeah, there was a change with how they do the weigh-ins. That was a few months ago. They kind of made a change.
Yeah, so we're gonna have new, first of all, we're gonna have a new set of weights soon. That's more in line with NFHS weights plus the one extra for our light weights. In Pennsylvania, they don't do like a 99 or a 1 or 2 or something like that. We do. Yeah, we're getting away with the 50% rule, which in the past, just to explain it, was you would have to weigh in for 50% of your weigh-ins on the year had to be at the weight you want to wrestle in the postseason. We're not doing that anymore. It's going to a 1.5% weight reduction rule, to where, just like in the past, you could, if I wrestled 140, like the old weights, if I wrestled 145, and I showed up at 140 for the class tournament, then I guess I'm going 140 for the class tournament. And that's my only time during the entire season, then you could do that. But now we're going back to that, where you only have to make that weight once, but it's a 1.5% percent reduction thing. I need to get some more information on how that works, but the point is, the bottom line is, we're going back to that situation where you only have to weigh in for your postseason weight once. And that's
so you're not quite as stressed out about your weight throughout the season.
Yeah, I don't think stress, or I'm sure there's a safety, weight loss, safety type of mechanism or reason, logic for this as well. But yeah, that's a major rule change. And then I think those were the two biggest ones. And then always in the off season, there's always talk about what moves are illegal or unnecessary, or there's always that ongoing conversation about the physiological aspect of wrestling, where is this move illegal because of the pressure it puts on this joint or this joint. There's always that conversation as well. So, it should be another interesting off season, especially with the girls wrestling cooked in there. But we have a couple of changes for next year already coming up, and I'm sure there'll be more after that too. So.
All right, I think that will do it for us this week. Want to thank Matt for coming along. Again, we want to mention this today and tomorrow we're doing our girls and boys basketball preview shows, 2 o'clock both days. We're inviting in some really players from all the top teams in Western New York. They're going to be here in our studio. We're going to be chilling with them. We're going to be talking to them live, as well as show you the brackets, which are coming out in just a few hours. So
what's coming up? What should I know? My head is just completely in the sand for wrestling. What's going on in the outside world?
Basketball. So the basketball playoffs start next week.
Okay.
So that's why we're doing our shows this weekend. Hockey, they've kind of already got. Well, the girls we mentioned. Fortunately, Kenji lost in the state semifinals. So girls hockey's over with. Okay. Boys hockey, they just got done with their first round of playoffs. So next week, those games are going to be all on the NFHS network, which I put out a graphic on social media. You can see your games Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then next Monday is what they call Super Monday. I don't know how long you've been in Western New York, but they used to have years ago a Super Sunday event at KeyBank Center. There'd be like 5 or 6 hockey games. They include club and all that. So now they're going to do the 3-Fed game, which is the large school, the small school, and the private schools. The triple header at KeyBank Center. Cool. For our championships. That'll be Monday the 27th, but of course next week is going to be 4 straight days of double headers, and we have a quadruple header in there. All those games on the NFHS network, and then of course regionals and states coming up after that.
Okay.
And basketball gets started this week, and the 27th is really like what we call our busy week, where we're out at about 3 or 4 sites a night.
Yeah.
During that week, so I'll be putting out a schedule for that probably Monday or so, for that last week of February, first week of March, for all those games. But plenty happening.
Yeah, that's great. I've seen is part of the hockey thing where the Sabres are like wearing some of the local schools' jerseys.
I don't think this will be part of this, but we did. I don't know if you saw that. I'm sure you saw that video from a few weeks ago where, where they actually wore a lot of the local, high school jerseys. They wore girls, boys.
Yeah.
We were talking about that. I think a few weeks ago. It'd be cool if like the Bills did that with a bunch of like.
Ooh, that'd be pretty.
You
sweet.
imagine like Ed Oliver and a Rashad Perry.
Yeah.
Jersey.
I'll have to talk to Coach Stutzman about where the wrestlers wearing local singlets.
Oh, with UB?
Yeah,
that would be cool.
That'd be cool. That's awesome. I saw that the Bandits are going to be rocking some local high schools lacrosse jerseys here soon. I'm excited for lacrosse. I know we're a big baseball organization here because of Tom Prince and his efforts, but I love. I'm a big lacrosse fan, and I'm always seeing what's going on with Amherst because of Coach Hen and Williamsville East because of Coach Greenway and stuff, and I'm starting to kind of see what's going on. I know Hamburg. I got some family ties in Hamburg. And also with Hamburg, we were talking about with Newfane wrestlers about wrestling. I've seen case in point what it can do to a program like Hamburg Lacrosse. That's probably the best program for a long time.
They're always in the sectional final.
My God, do they have some of my wrestlers out there like Luke Smeater, who is just an absolute monster out there on the lacrosse field. It's just unbelievable. You can tell if you watch a lacrosse game, you can tell if you know wrestling and you know lacrosse, you can tell who's a wrestler and who isn't. It is just unbelievable. And I mean, obviously, Hamburg has some of the most skilled lacrosse players in the area. That's no question at all. But man, when it comes to like the Collins brothers who were there, who play Division I now, or Smeater, or any of these guys, like, I'm like shocked. I'm like, okay, this is. I'm like, yeah, here's my guys. My wrestlers are out there, running everybody over. But they do it in a way that's like it's within the boundaries of the game. It's not like craziness, maniac running around. It's
They're physical,
body control, physical, mechanical. Know when to back off, know when to lay a hit. It's great. It's fun to watch. So I don't know. I'll travel around and go watch some lacrosse games. I know I've covered it for Western New York Athletics in the past. But yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to get out in the springtime. I ran track in high school, and it was like literally a breath of fresh air getting out of the room and just being like, I need to go outside for 3 straight months. Just leave me alone. I'm going outside.
I know.
Anyway, yeah, I'm excited to see, wrestling ends earlier than the other sports. So for a couple weeks, I can kind of enjoy what's going on with hockey or basketball. I'm like texting you or Frank, what does this mean? What's going on here? What's going on there? So I can I have a few weeks to kind of enjoy and appreciate some of the other sports before baseball and lacrosse and track and stuff start up again. But cool. That's good. That's fun.
All right, so that will do it for us. We want to thank Matt for coming in. Yep. You can follow him on Twitter at Matt_O'Rourke1.
Yep.
He'll be at that girls tournament today. We're going to try to see if we can get those interviews on WY Athletics, create some interviews. We want to thank Newfane for coming in this morning. So if you haven't seen it yet, I know we're live once this is over. Go back and rewatch that interview. They did a great job.
Great interviews.
I think we want to get, we want to get, if we get some winners from states next week, bring them into the show in a couple weeks. Gabby Barone won for the girls side. We want to bring some girls in. Yep. This show, we're trying to build it, that old Inside High School Sports show, trying to bring in as many kids as possible, showcase them as well. But for Matt O'Rourke, I'm Francis Beck. Thank you for tuning in. This is High School Sports Saturday on WNY Athletics.
All right.
Sometimes it just isn't your day. We all need a little help from time to time. That's why we're committed to providing safe, quick, and cost-effective care. And we keep it simple. Just walk in. We're here for you. Learn more today.
Do you insure a lot of businesses?
Yes, we do.
How about restaurants?
We got a bunch.
Do you cover property damage?
Yes, we do.
How about my equipment?
Covered.
How about sewer backup?
We got it.
What if my cook gets hurt?
They're covered.
Foodborne illnesses?
Covered.
What if my party tent goes down?
Covered under property damage.
And you say this is all under one policy?
One policy.
When do I pay?
Once a month.
Just one time?
Just one.
Is there anything you don't cover?
What's your record for consecutive questions asked?
31.
Tables. We don't do tables.
Gotta love Buffalo.
For all your insurance questions, call the Wolf at 835-WOLF.
We realize now more than ever is the perfect time to have the perfect house. We're confident we'll find your dream home. Howard Hanna. Home happens here.